Yo, what's up? It's Someone That's Someone, and welcome back to another Storytime special. Thank you for 23,000 subscribers. We hit this milestone super quick, as some videos did kinda blow up. And as per every 1,000, here we are with another story. This is also another episode in the playlist, Chapter 1, Beginnings of a Psychonaut. A segment of my life where I entered the ways of being a psychonaut, both subconsciously and consciously. It's a collection of stories of my first time trying a substance, which a big portion of these experiences was with my drug partner at the time, Evan. And I do recommend you check out the prior episodes to this, so you do have a better understanding of everything that's led up to this point. Also, this is the final episode in the playlist, which, just pretty wild, considering I think we started this playlist a couple years back now. But at the time, Evan and I chose about 10 substances to try out, and this will be the last one to end this chapter off. As you can see though, there's more than 10 different substances in this playlist. I think somewhere around 15. But anyways, now that that's laid out, let's get into today's story and substance. Okay, so chronologically, this happened after our first time trying LSA. So specifically, make sure to check that out before this. But we would end up trying Dream Herb literally the day after that trip. We didn't really plan on this, but the main reason was because we were dry on weed. I knew I would be alright, but Evan needed something, and he knew I recently just got the Dream Herb, and that it can provide a relaxing effect. And I wasn't opposed to trying it out, so we would do it this day. But before we get into this story, and what kind of effects we experienced, let's talk about this substance a little bit, and how we ended up choosing it. So as you see in the title, the full name for this substance is Calea Zacatechichi, which there's many other names as well, but this is one of the most common, and what I saw it as when we got it. But it also does go by Dream Herb, and stands out in ways, in a similar way Kava Kava does. Kratom is something else that comes to mind that you can compare it to. They're both naturally occurring, and have a multitude of active constituents at play. But Dream Herb is in its own lane, and really isn't directly comparable to much. Technically, you could group it as an anerogen, that is, a group of substances that have a notable impact on the dream state. This plant is native in Mexico for the most part, and has a good amount of history acting as a medicine and for ritual purposes, as you can probably imagine with a plant named Dream Herb. Now this substance can have practical uses outside of this, and could have other effects. But what this substance does notably is give the user more vivid and waking dreams, with claims that lucid dreaming is more easily influenced, which this is the effect that stood out to both Evan and I. But it's pretty stupid because we didn't really set ourselves up right for that kind of experience, besides one other time, but that's for another story. But dreams are something that have always fascinated me. I've made tons of dream journal entries in my life, some you can find on the channel in a playlist. I feel like dreams can be some of the most wildest experiences at times. I've also had lucid dreams before, and had an amazing experience, but I wouldn't call myself an expert at it by any means. Most times I have to get set up in the right way, and then take hold when the opportunity comes up. So, considering this history I had with dreaming, it was something that definitely caught my interest, and Evan was down. He doesn't have a history like mine, but wanted to see if anything would happen. So we acquired this like a week before we decided to take it. If you look back, we were pretty much just on this run of taking stuff without a real break in between. And it's pretty crazy because we were actually contemplating on taking DXM again the day after we had that LSA. Main reason being because we wanted to see what the next plateau would be like, but we would push this off until a bit later on. But like I said before, we didn't have any bud this day, and we wanted to smoke something. And I remembered having the Dream Herb as something we could try still and smoke. Now this Dream Herb came as a bunch of plant material, and I think that's how it normally is. What I mean is, it's all of the plant, from certain stems, leaves, and whatnot, which you can steep this in water and make a tea out of it, or break it down and smoke it. We put a good amount in Evan's grinder and loaded up a gram-sized joint with it. And just like any other sesh, we lit up and smoked. It was somewhat cloudy out, but warm and fairly decent outside. It being like 3 in the afternoon, neither of us were in a position to really go to sleep just yet. I just wasn't tired, and Evan had to run to dance practice afterwards. So we weren't expecting anything along the lines of dream enhancement. Maybe later that night, but we would end up having a fat-ass sesh with actual weed, so I don't remember any dreams from this day. But we did look into it, and there is some effects you will get while still awake, mainly a feeling of relaxation and slight sedation. Evan's expectations weren't super high for this one in terms of recreation, and I was pretty much the same, but still interested to see what it would be like. So when we started smoking, I have to say one of the first things that stood out is both the taste of it and the body of the smoke. The taste I would say is pretty bitter and not very pleasant. Most people can probably handle it, but in the same way, most people would handle black coffee. Not the best tasting thing ever. And I can't speak on the tea, but I've heard handling the taste with that can be much more difficult, and the chances for nausea are much higher. But then there's the body of smoke, which could also be unpleasant, as it can be a bit harsh. You can expect a somewhat thick body of smoke, but I feel like just the plant itself and the consistency of it when burned is in general just rough. It's often suggested that you have another herb when smoking to help level that out. But considering at heart, Evan and I are stoners and smoke weed all the time, smoking the dream herb wasn't anything we couldn't handle. And both of us hadn't had anything since the trip last night. So we were pretty fresh when it came to the effects that were brought on, which they came on within a few minutes after smoking. Both of us felt more relaxed, and we could easily see how it could be fitting for bedtime. But I will say there was also somewhat a floaty feeling to it as well, though nothing too vibrant or strong. I would also say the headspace had some lucidity and felt pretty flowing. And I remember once we were like halfway through the joint, Evan said that this was probably all we were going to feel, which he was right about. I could tell both of us did want weed at this point, but that would have to wait. Once we finished up smoking, he had to leave for that practice, so he dropped me off. And honestly, that was pretty much that. I went about my day like normal afterwards, just carrying a bit more relaxation than normal. Pretty subtle effect overall, and we would never set up a time to try this for the dream effects. Like I said, we got stoned later on that night, and honestly, we were just on such a run and had so much going on that the dream herb was almost forgotten. Not entirely, but neither of us have actually tried to use it to lucid dream or get any dream effects. Which to me is pretty crazy because I still actually had the same batch and we have smoked it other times, but it never really came up like that oddly enough. But making this video, I have to say my interest is rekindled a lot to see what effects it could have on the dream state. I feel like I owe it to the substance to do it more properly and overall give it more respect than how we did just coming into it casually and smoking it like it was whatever. And I know this story is far from the potential experience this substance can bring you, but I gotta keep it real and straightforward with you guys. This is how we came into it, and these are the simple effects that we got. Just know that there is a lot more to this substance than what I brought up, especially if you want to get into the technical aspects of it. But yeah, with this, that's the last episode in Chapter 1, Beginnings of a Psychonaut. Just wild considering how all this happened and everything leading up to this. But really with this playlist, we're just starting to warm up with what we got coming. Like this playlist was super introductory and just the first steps. But I feel like one of the most important things about this first chapter is the variety and how we got pretty much introduced to almost every major drug class. Looking back, we had 2 psychedelics with 1 PLSD and Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds. We had stimulants with caffeine and MDMA. We had depressants with alcohol and lean, a dissociative with DXM, a deliriant with diphenhydramine, cannabinoids with cannabis and delta-9 wax, and then the miscellaneous substances with kratom, kava kava, dream herb, and the time I sniffed Germ-X. And there is some other classes technically that we didn't cover, like nootropics or inhalants, but you can expect those to come up in future chapters. Which, speaking of chapters, just to give you a sneak peek, we had a month break before we got things rolling with chapter 2. But I will say that a lot happened in this month leading up to that. Some things that would change my life forever. Some of my most wildest experiences ever. And I don't have a name yet for this chapter, but just know that it is the shortest chapter so far, both in substances and considering time frame. I'm pretty sure it only played out over the course of a few months, and there's about 10 different substances. As for chapter 3, technically this was already started, and you can find a couple episodes on the channel in the playlist, Chapter 3, Transference. I won't get into this really today, because you gotta understand chapter 2 to really get the full context of it. But just know that chapter 3 is also done, and it's pretty similar to chapter 1. And as of today, we're currently in the process of chapter 4. So this practice of psychonautics has developed immensely, but this chapter 1 was my starting point, and really, this was the beginning of so much. But we're gonna end it there for today. Thank you for watching this video and this playlist. Also, thank you for being a fan and for 23,000 subscribers. If you haven't liked or subscribed, make sure to do that, and check out the description below to submit a report, join the Discord, the Patreon, and more. I look forward to dropping the next story time at 24,000, so until next time, it's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.